The parallel between a great Giants team and the city of San Francisco thriving, I think it's real. I mean, I was able to experience it as a player. I think the pride that the city had when the team played well. I had so many different fans come up to me in tears after we had won in 10 and just talk about what it had meant to them because of them being generational San Francisco Giants. And what we're doing is more impactful than just wins and losses.
We're the San Francisco Giants, but hey, guess what? We need more housing in San Francisco. We need more open space. People like this part of town. Let's see if we can do something with it. Can our impact move out beyond the team itself?
Oh, being in the stadium and high-fiving with someone, know their politics. We're both wearing the same jersey and talking with your kids about it. It's the best. It's the best. So everybody say hi to Larry Baer, the president and CEO of the San Francisco Giants, who's also on the board of the club. Larry, you put the investor group together that bought the team and kept the Giants from going to Florida in 1992. You've worked here ever since. Have led the team, the franchise, for 3+ decades of success, including directing the construction of the best ballpark in the world, which is Oracle Park, where we are today. It opened in 2000, 25 years ago. Not to mention, the team winning 3 World Series titles, 2010, 12, and 14. Not such a bad track record. So thanks for being here, Larry. Good to see you.
Thank you, David, and welcome. And we're thrilled that you're a new partner in the Giants.
Thanks. And there's also someone else here, 3-time World Series champion and 7-time All-Star Buster Posey. Buster now serves as the president of baseball operations for the Giants, moving into that role about 9 months ago in September 2024. You spent your entire 12-year professional career here at the Giants. You rank among the club's all-time leaders in most stats that you're going to think of. This is not a baseball podcast, so we're not going to go into a lot of stats. But in 58 career postseason games, 57 postseason hits, 25 RBIs, most by a Giant franchise history. One of only 3 catchers in history, in Major League history, to win the World Series and be voted league MVP in the same season. If you know the other 2, come up afterwards. Larry's giving you a free pretzel. After you retired, Buster, from playing in November 2021, you joined the Giants ownership group in September 2022. You also joined the board of directors, all that before taking on the new role. Anyway, guys, thanks. It's great to have you here. Great to be here with you. Thanks for letting us come and invade your home. Okay, Buster, I want to start with you if we can. So, new gig. 9 months in, one of the themes in our conversations in this podcast that I think have come out is like the thing that gets you to recognition into the seat, like being a lawyer or an accountant or good at investing or being a baseball player. Those aren't necessarily the skills that you then need to use in your next role. Are you finding that, or is like the analogy of being a catcher and being the field general, is that super helpful? Like how have you thought about that so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences. So I'll start with the differences. I mean, the way I've approached this is very much that I'm learning daily. I came into this role with a lot of great people around me, and that kind of leads me to what the similarities are. The similarities are moving from being a baseball player to now in a management position. It's still a team, right? I mean, it's a team. There's a ton of people that make the day-to-day go, and when you're on the field, you're not alone. It's some of the intrigue. I think with baseball, it's such a unique sport because it's highly individualized competition between a pitcher and a batter. But then you're going to rely, when you get that base hit, you're relying on the guy on second to get a great jump to score on your base hit. And then similar, I feel like in this role as well, is that maybe there's a phone call made to start a conversation for a trade, but you're relying on your front office teammate to either give you insight or advice from past experience, or it's a call to somebody else within that other organization to kind of keep the momentum going. So there's some things that are similar for sure.
There's a piece in I think it was in the Standard last week. It was a conversation with Greg Johnson, one of the principal owners, talking about your guys' rapport in the Rafi Devers trade. So like you becoming like a deal person and thinking about that, was that natural, or like were you working out your relationship with Greg as you were going through it?
The nice thing about my relationship with Greg at this point is that it's been established. We really got to know each other over COVID. We were arguing about wanting to be back on the field and play, and I kind of probably had some snarky comments to him, and he'd come back at me. And I think just that rawness that we initially had during COVID opened up an avenue for us to have what I consider a pretty trusting relationship. I trust him. I feel like he trusts me, so that when he says something, I know there's nothing that I have to sift through. And conversely, I hope the same thing for him. So when the Devers trade happened, or was starting to happen, we laid it out for Greg. Larry said, these are some possible scenarios here. We think this is a route that would be viable. I'm not saying that this is where it's going to end up. So we kind of laid out parameters. And then, Greg had conversations with Boston's ownership as well, which was really helpful for us to kind of understand where their head was with Rafi and, the future of the organization. So it was an interesting process. It was fun. Somebody asked me if it was the same adrenaline that I got as a player. Probably not. But it was still a big deal. You could feel it in the ballpark here last week, just the excitement from the fan base. And something Larry and I talk about a lot is, yes, it's about wins and losses, but ultimately, to me, baseball, sports, but baseball in particular, because it is 162 games, it's storytelling, right? I mean, the ability for fans to show up with their family, their friends, to have the memory of the first game of Rafi Devers hitting a homer in Oracle Park is hopefully something they can look back on years from now and tell grandchildren about.
Yeah, you've called it a memory-making business. With that really sticks. Let's rewind the tape then and talk about memories. August 7th, 1992. Why was that an important day for you?
I remember August 7th, 1992 pretty vividly, David, because that day I was in New York City, actually, working for CBS, and the headlines rolled across. There's no internet at the time, but kind of the shockwaves hit because there was a press conference announcing that the San Francisco Giants were moving to Tampa. After 4 elections where it was not passed, it was not triggered public money to build a ballpark, 4 ballpark elections, 2 in San Francisco, 2 in the South Bay. The owner at the time, Bob Lurie, who at one point saved the Giants initially back in 1976 with his group when the team was going to move to Toronto, had sold the team to a group in Florida.
No relation to our new mayor.
No relation to Daniel, nor Marty Lurie. So, and Bob Lurie, who was a great San Franciscan, but literally he thought he had come to the end point in terms of getting a ballpark to replace Candlestick. That was really the game. I mean, he had done a great job in many respects. The team was in the World Series in 1989. I grew up, like so many, loving the Giants from, I wasn't there in 58, but in the 60s, Mays, McCovey, Marichal, Cepeda. It was a great, proud franchise. Then morphed into Will Clark and Mike Krukow and the team in the 80s. So, and then to see the team, almost disappear, or about to be on the precipice of moving the following year to Florida, where there was a stadium ready to go, it was scary.
How old were you at that point?
I was, at that point, I was 30, early 30s.
Okay.
32,
so
33.
What do you, like, what do you, can you do about that?
So what you do is, like, this can't happen. There's obviously people in charge of the city who don't want it to happen, like the mayor. And the mayor at the time, Frank Jordan, was great, but he's not going to be able to create a stadium, poof, here's a stadium, or poof, here's an ownership group. This was a signed purchase agreement. The only way for the signed purchase agreement to be invalidated was the owners in baseball at the time would have to not consent to the move. The owners' meeting was the first week of November. So I started calling around. I had worked for the Giants a couple of years between college and graduate school before New York, and knew some of the folks that were, the civic leaders. I grew up in San Francisco, and we had a few weeks to try to galvanize a group. Thankfully, there were other pots of activity. Walter Shorenstein was involved. Richard Goldman was involved. I reached out to somebody I knew pretty well, Peter McGowan, who was CEO of Safeway and had been on the Giants board previously. Peter, would you get involved? He said, I got to think about it. So ultimately, all those efforts sort of galvanized to a point where we could put together a group that would, in the face of the Tampa up or down vote in November, transfer the franchise to Florida, that this group in the background, make it known to the other owners, make it known to MLB and the commissioner that we were there, then maybe they would say no to the move to Tampa and give it one more shot in San Francisco after 4 elections where the voters denied a new ballpark with public money. And that was our gambit. And it was a good, amazing group, right? We had Don Fisher, before Don and John acquired the A's, Charles Schwab, Walter Shorenstein, Dick Goldman, Peter McGowan, a man named Harmon Burns, who was at Franklin Templeton, and Charles Johnson was in a small way, Arthur Ryan. I mean, we had this kind of a who's who of, in some ways, American business, Bill Hewlett from Hewlett Packard.
Yeah. Okay, so that worked. Are you feeling any parallels to like today a little bit in terms of San Francisco, like a key moment, the city's turning around? Like what are there any parallels?
Well, I mean, I think this is a little different, but I think Mayor Lurie has called on the urgency here in San Francisco in a very compelling way that we all need to pull together and get San Francisco back to where we know it can be and where many of us grew up with the city being such a magical place, and I think we're well on the way. So a little different. This was a crisis where we were going to lose an institution, but arguably in the last few years, what we've been through has been at a crisis level for the city and for its stature in the world.
I mean, you got here, Larry, in 1993 as a younger guy, starting in a job that, I mean, you obviously figured it out, but like that must have been daunting.
For me, being a kid growing up in South Georgia and then moving to San Francisco, it was a pretty big change for me, my wife as well. But I'd say where Larry and I bonded, he grew up here his whole life and he has a passion for the city and the Bay Area and the people that are involved. And I think that's where we relate the most, is that we want San Francisco to be proud of the Giants. We want our fan base to come to the ballpark and leave, win or lose, having a great experience. Obviously, it's better if you win. I give Larry credit to this because he's really the first one that I heard talk about it. But the parallel between a great Giants team and the city of San Francisco thriving, I think it's real. I mean, I was able to experience it as a player. I think the pride that the city had when the team played well, I had so many different fans come up to me in tears after we had won in 10 and just talk about what it had meant to them because of them being generational San Francisco Giants. And I know he feels this way, I feel this way, is that what we're doing is more impactful than just wins and losses. I'm certainly a very competitive person and I want to win every single day. But that's kind of what excites me, and it has excited me about being in this role, is just understanding what the impact can be beyond the game.
And getting to know Buster over the years as a player, I have a very vivid moment when I got a call from Buster after the 2021 season, a very successful season, won 107 games. Buster had a great year. And I'm actually at our daughter's parents' weekend back east at Brown University. And I see Buster Posey. And I actually thought Buster was calling because there was an option year on his contract for 2022. And I thought Buster was calling. It was like, hey, let's spin the 1 year into a couple years and my agent's going to call and all that, just heads up. That's what I thought when I saw the thing. Shocked that, for all the right reasons, and probably shouldn't have been so shocked, that Buster was going to decide to retire. And, that was like a cataclysmic thing initially for us because Buster was such the face of a franchise that had never enjoyed the success that we had under Buster's leadership, starting with essentially his rookie season in 2010. And then as I was processing that, and after the press conference, I remember I said to Buster and Buster's representative. It's like, you're a forever Giant. You're such a big part of the franchise. What do you see down the line? And broadcaster, back on the field, manager, coach, general manager, whatever. And he said, we'll think about it. We said, just take your time, process. Get a call, maybe a month or so later. Would it be possible to be part of the ownership group? Would it be possible to invest in the team? And to me and to, Greg and our board and the ownership, it was like manna from heaven. That not only could you have, such an amazing force for the franchise, who is, just an impeccable love affair and image with our fans and in this community, but wanting to contribute in this way.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of us, we would talk some when he was a player, but he's a player, and I'm up at the front office and I'm a suit. And that was the beginning of us being able to collaborate.
Why was that important to you, Buster? Not the typical path for a retired player.
Yeah. I think it really just stemmed from, like I mentioned before, my connection that I felt to the area and to the fan base, and felt like it was a gesture that went beyond your typical advisor role, your special advisor to the GM or whatever title you want to put on it. I think it kind of solidified in my mind, even though Larry was in ownership group was gracious, like, you're always a Giant, and I believe that, but I think for me, and I was able to join the board as well as part of that, so I looked at it as a learning experience to be able to sit in and listen to conversations that otherwise I wouldn't have access to. So for those couple of reasons, it felt like a good fit.
And for us, and knowing Buster through the years as a player, there was always an intellectual curiosity there. And so when he offered that, he said, immediately it's, well, Buster has to be on the board, and immediately the value add that would come with somebody so tuned in to the game and beyond the game, as he's spoken, to what we're trying to do here in the community with the fans, was just such a no-brainer and such a natural. And it's kind of like, when we think of this, to come on and be part of ownership. And the other thing in baseball, and it's like kind of was gnawing at us. There are no former baseball players that are giving what Buster can give to us in the sport. No cases of that. And it's just like great to see a former player play for one club his whole career and connected to the community.
Totally.
Do this.
Buster, what surprised you? Anything surprised you about the job?
How much I have to be on my phone.
Interesting.
No, I think that has been one piece of the puzzle for me, because my family is always going to come before my job, and I think I was a little bit hesitant to jump on this just because I wasn't sure what toll it would take on them. I'm saying this, as I knock on this wooden armchair, that I do feel like I've done a pretty good job of balancing that so far. I mean, I've had so many people say it's 24/7, a 24/7 job, which it is in the sense that, Larry might call me at midnight one night, but it doesn't mean that it's nonstop. It kind of fits with my personality. I love to be engaged, and I love to have something to work on and have different challenges. And what's been fun for me is that as a player, the challenge was pretty one-dimensional, whereas this has a lot of different dimensions, and it's, as Larry's mentioned, more big picture, I think, and not necessarily, you want to be in the moment, but also have an eye on what the future is going to look like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and some of these contracts are longer than that. It's been fun to learn on the fly.
How do you stay focused on what you think is important? If I'm thinking about this conversation, thinking about you, everybody's a freaking expert. I mean, I'm an expert. I've watched a bunch of baseball games. So how do you tune that out? Do you have skill, things that you do?
Yeah, I think first I would say is I want to try to get to know that expert and understand if they really are an expert or not. I think that helps. And then second for me is just having kind of a straight and narrow path and what my belief system is and what's important, but also being malleable enough to recognize daily that I don't have all the answers, so I need to be able to filter. Again, I think it's very similar as when I was a player. I'd have a lot of people telling me I need to do this and that with my swinger. I needed to catch this way. You have to be able to take that information in and maybe try it, apply it here and there, and figure out if it works. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, you have to be able to move on from it. And I think it's similar in this role as well.
Got it. What about you, Larry? I mean, you must be getting advice all the time from
Yeah, and
all
I
of
mean,
us.
which is, I mean, kind of reminds me, somebody once said that go to a restaurant. Okay, you can have an opinion. It's great food, not great food. They should do this, they should do that. Service, but it doesn't prepare you to be the executive chef. You're not the executive. You can't walk into the kitchen and change it and fix it. I remember working with Peter McGowan. It was really interesting, and he was running Safeway at the time. He used to say, let's make 25 decisions a week and get it 87% right, as opposed to 6 decisions a week and get them all right. Let's keep moving, keep things going.
Can we talk about evaluating talent? It's another one of the themes that has kind of evolved in these kinds of conversations over time, sort of how people have learned to try not to misevaluate talent. And maybe, Buster, start with you. I don't think there's any question about your baseball talent, but your first year at FSU, you were not a catcher. You were, and like, it's kind of, I mean, you're one of the catchers of the ages, right? Like, did they miss something? Did you miss something? Like what, or like, how did that happen?
To be a catcher, you have to be a glutton for punishment. I guess I had that in me. No, I played shortstop up until my sophomore year in college. And actually one of my best friends, he's the first base coach for us now, Mark Hallberg, had transferred into FSU. And I had enough, I guess, self-evaluation. My self-evaluation was high enough that I could look out there and I was like, this guy's better than I am. And even from looking around, I could tell probably if I wanted to play the next level that I was going to have to move off a short. Just didn't have the range in the field that the elite defenders in professional baseball had. So I took to it and I loved it. I mean, it had its growing pains for sure. I mean, I can remember sitting in my apartment in college for like the first 3 months. I would watch TV at night in a catcher squat, just trying to get my hips and knees into the position where I felt comfortable behind the plate. And no,
I'm just telling you, at almost 54 years old, that sounds really bad.
Well, that's why I've had a hip surgery already. Yeah. And I'm not close to 54.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding us.
Yeah, sure. The question about talent evaluation, I think for players, this is a little bit off topic, but one of the key attributes that I do look at and try to figure out, and I did this as a player myself, is asking guys questions to try to understand if they understand who they are. Because if you don't understand who you are, it's really hard to go in one direction, the direction of wanting to go forward or up, if you don't have the baseline of understanding who you are as a player.
How do you suss that out?
By what my eyes tell me and what my ears tell me. So if my eyes and ears aren't matching up from what I'm seeing and what they're telling me, then it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's true in the business world too, for sure. Larry, when you guys took over the team in '93, the first person you hired was the manager, and it was a guy who everybody knows now, Dusty Baker. He wasn't obviously a manager, I don't think, at that time, but that was obvious to you guys. And what was that talent evaluation thing?
So that was one of those things that, again, you have to try to trust your instincts. So when we took over the team, Peter McGowan and I are calling around furiously, trying those people that we did know in the game to try to get some thoughts about what we do about the manager job and the general manager job. And we've put an urgency on the manager's job just because, general managers are very important too, but we thought that the best talent would get snapped up because of the time of the year. And we had talked to a few folks, but we were literally meeting with them in Peter's living room. And Dusty Baker was a Giants hitting coach. He had managed a total of a dozen or so games in the Arizona Fall League. That was it, his managing experience. We sat down with him And it's a little bit like what Buster was saying on talent evaluation. The passion, the human connection, we had been told that we kind of got a feel that at least equally important to what you do from first pitch to last out is what you do from last out to first pitch. So all that you're doing in the clubhouse, on the flights, on the road, the way to keep the team together and to create a trusting relationship between the manager and coaches and the team, incredibly important. And we picked that up from Dusty, his capabilities there. So we went ahead and hired Dusty, first-time manager, who then went out to get a general manager. I mean, we talked to a few folks, and it's like, you got to be in on Dusty. If you're not in on Dusty, this isn't going to work. We hired Bob Quinn, who had been the general manager of the Cincinnati Reds, who won the championship in 1990. Our year was 1993. And Bob Quinn said to us, I'll come if I can bring a number 2. And that number 2 is the head of scouting for the Yankees. His name is Brian Sabean. And we didn't know Brian Sabean from the Man on the Moon, right? But kind of when you do the research, under Brian Sabean's leadership is in the scouting department at the Yankees, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera, Bernie Williams. So that happened. And Bob was like, I'm going to do this for a few more years. And Bob was in his 70s, I think. And so we had a succession plan and it worked. Dusty, I don't know that we could have done better with anyone than in the our first 10 years of our ownership than Dusty as manager. We didn't win any championships, but he set the right tone. He connected with the players beautifully. He connected with the community. He connected with the front office. Dusty and Brian, it's a very important relationship, right, between the general manager and the manager. And for Peter and myself, it was just a matter of that working smoothly, which it did for a good decade.
I mean, but that first season was a pretty good season, if I recall.
103 wins. Yeah. We thought, God, this is easy. The first year, this is like, God, what's the big deal running a baseball team? And one of those years where everything went well, and we even had a million increase in attendance from 1.6, 1.5 the previous year at Candlestick to 2.5 at Candlestick, but we knew we were not going to be able to survive in San Francisco if we did not get a new ballpark done.
Talk about set for Buster's. He said Dusty Baker set the tone. Like, what is the tone when you're a player? Like, what matters that you get the season off to the on the right track?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with. It's funny. Some people say the word culture is thrown around a lot, and I think it is. But to me, culture matters only if it's backed up by action. So the words only can carry you so far. So I think it's set early in the spring with an identity, how we want to play the game, what are the small parts of the game that really matter to us, what do we feel like as a group that is going to put us in the best position to win. And then the hope is that as you spend more time together, you start to build a level of trust for one another, that we're all in it for the right reasons, which is not an easy thing, right? When you're dealing with 22 to 40-year-olds that are making millions of dollars to try to get everybody pulling in the same direction. Fortunate to have been on some of those teams, and I remember leaving college and thinking about how much I missed that, how much I missed the team element of really just ultimately working towards one goal. And you get into minor league baseball, and it's climb the ladder. Yeah. It's, is this guy, even though he's my teammate, he might be taking my job type of thing. And so when I got to San Francisco in 2010, it was refreshing that culture had already been established, that we're working towards winning the division, getting the playoffs, going on a deep run. It's amazing too, the productivity when you work from that mindset rather than from a selfish mindset. In my opinion, just how much more productive you are individually. And it's something that I've talked with our coaches and with our players some directly, that ultimately my belief is, and it is through experience too, that if you go out and play the game from a selfless position, you're going to be rewarded for that. You're going to be rewarded for team baseball. And to me, this is a long-winded way of saying the tone is something that can be set early, but it has to be carried out daily, and it has to be front of mind conversations with everybody that you come in contact with, because it can't be purely a mission statement that you read off one time and expect it to stick with people.
Right. When you talk about like style of player, style of baseball, what do you mean by that? What is Giants baseball to you?
Well, what we hope it is a tough brand of baseball that whether it's a low-scoring game or high-scoring game, we're going to be in the game. Something I've talked to our group about a lot, our players a lot this year, is that when the opposing team comes into town, I want them to feel our pressure. I want them to understand that it's not going to be easy to play the San Francisco Giants. Again, you may win the game, but you're going to limp away. And I think over the long haul, if you buy into that mentality, one, you're going to be in a lot of games. You should win a lot of games, but you're also going to gain a little bit of an edge when eventually that word does get out to the rest of the league that the Giants are not a team that will roll over.
How important is it that the business side and the sporting side are in sync on that?
Very. We're one organization, and people on the business side don't have the skill sets to do what Buster and his team does, but we're all, I believe, mission driven, right? And so one of the things that it's just such a great, rewarding thing is to see the folks inside our front office, and even those that aren't touching directly the baseball team care so much, and with the passion. Wearing San Francisco across our chest means something. And you feel like, it's almost like, it's part of a quasi-public utility. Now, we're a private company, as you well know, and with profits and losses and valuations and all of those things. We're not the San Francisco Opera or San Francisco Symphony, et cetera. But I believe we're more than just a business, I say in a way that it's a motivator for all of us. We just had a staff meeting, and one of Buster's lieutenants, Zach Benazian, came in and gave a download to our business group about what's happening in the last couple of weeks, and it was empowering because they're Giants fans, they care, they're in the community, they go to the coffee shop, they go to the dry cleaners, and people want to talk about the Giants, and that's an exciting thing for them. They have to be obviously good at their craft, but I think there's a kind of an elevated sense of mission with an organization like a sports franchise.
How important is that to the players, Buster, knowing that like everybody around San Francisco is like, when the team's up, obviously you feel the buzz, that's great in the ballpark, but my sense is that the ownership group, started in '93, had a great sense of civic pride and mission. That's continued, that really matters. And that certainly matters to the rest of us living in and around the San Francisco. Does it matter to the players think about that?
It does, because you can feel it. You can feel it when you're on the field. I won't call out specific teams, but there are teams where they don't have the same energy. There's not the same passion, or the fan base isn't as knowledgeable, I guess, of what's going on in the game. And yeah, it does matter. it's everybody I think is individually motivated for different reasons. But again, I go back to ultimately most all of us started playing some sort of team sport to have a crack at winning a championship of some sort. So when your fan base is behind you to try to make it to the top, I think it just gives you even more motivation.
You were known in the clubhouse, Buster, as someone who, when you spoke, it mattered. How do you do that, and how has that changed now, in your new role? Do you go into the clubhouse and talk to the players, or that's not your role anymore? I
have a couple of times, but not much. I think it's important to kind of pick and choose my spots, similar to when I was playing, I guess. I do have to speak a lot more than I did as a player, and I feel like I'm getting better at it. But again, I think in my position now, it's really important to listen, especially. Maybe not so much now, but as the group was getting comfortable with me, I felt it really important to let them talk. I wanted to hear their opinions too, without maybe what my opinion might.
It's on your executive team, or
Correct.
On your team.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah, on the executive team or different departments, so that I could get an unfiltered opinion and not something that would be clouded maybe by something that I said. So I think now I don't have to do that quite as much now, just because I do feel like I have a good feel of the group. And as Larry mentioned, I think one of the unique or exciting things about being in this role is that everybody in the front office or on the business side, they just love baseball. And I mean, it's fun to be around. It's fun to be around a group of people that is passionate about the same thing. And I haven't been in any other business, but I would imagine that's has to be pretty unique.
And one of the real
Except
highs,
for 6th Street, of course.
Of course.
one of the real highs is, and we encourage everybody in the organization to do this, tonight we have a game against the Marlins. Take a walk in the upper deck and see, Buster mentioned it's a generational sport. Mothers and sons and fathers and daughters and grandparents enjoying an experience and taking it in. And that is where a lot of the satisfaction comes from those of us that can't be on the field playing or aren't necessarily, impacting directly one-to-one the team itself. But we're seeing this community come together. And frankly, today's world, 2025, more important than ever. Coming out of the pandemic and with all that's going on in the world, that we see in some ways a ballpark, a ball game, being around town with your friends, talking about the Giants, going into a bar or a restaurant, watching a game. It's more necessary than ever. That escape, that refuge, that 2 or 3 hours a day.
Oh, being in the stadium and high-fiving with someone, know their politics. We're both wearing the same jersey. Great, the best. And talking with your kids about it, it's the best. It's the best. Let's talk about baseball as a, sort of the state of baseball. We're having a resurgence. Attendance is up, revenue's up, international viewership is up. What's going on? Is it just the new rules? Pitch clock?
I think from talking to the fans, just the number of the improvements has been the cumulative effect, right, of the pitch clock and taking out the shifts, which makes, leads to more athleticism. That all the rule changes, I want to go through all of them, but the rule changes have been a positive. I also think that kind of what we were talking about before is that there is a real yearning for community connection and a communal experience. Are people going to movie theaters anymore? I wish they were, and there are some neighborhood theaters out, and we have an executive of the Giants who's very involved in the Neighborhood Theater Foundation, Alfonso Felder, but that's diminishing. But here you have a chance, here, music, sports, you have a chance for a community connection. And I think that that's what baseball is. It's in the summer. A lot of the games are during the day. You have time on your hands. People take vacations. I can't tell you the number of people that talk about how their summer, as we're getting into summer now, their summer is going to be traveling around to different ballparks, following the Giants or just sampling, Fenway Park or Wrigley Field or Camden Yards. I think that's the baseball today fits what people are looking for to kind of tune out some of the things in the world and tune into a great experience.
It's so intertwined with our history too. 150 years of American history is about baseball. And I think people would want to touch that. You were going to say something, Buster?
The rule changes have been hugely impactful. I think it's just a better product to watch in person, a better product to watch on television. I think that we have, 2 legitimate superstars in one in the National League, one in the American League, in Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. I was in Japan a couple of months ago, and that's a baseball-crazed country. I haven't been to Korea. I heard similar is there as well. So the hope is, I know for me as a person that loves baseball, is that it continues to be a global sport, and I think that will only help the product get better.
Yeah. Maybe, Larry, talk about the business of sport. It's not just the game, it's real estate, it's a media company, it's entertainment. Like, how are the Giants positioning? Maybe talk about Mission Rock a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that, to the extent we're a part of the community, an important part of the community, professional sports franchise, can our impact move out beyond the team itself?
Yeah.
And you have to do that carefully, and you can't be distracted, because baseball will always be our core business, and we're the San Francisco Giants. But one of the first opportunities we saw is, the growth of San Francisco, the growth in this neighborhood, and we had a surface parking lot, 30-acre surface parking lot, and hey, guess what? We need more housing in San Francisco. We need more open space. People like this part of town because it's a gateway to Silicon Valley. It's got great weather. It's connected to the Embarcadero in downtown. Let's see if we can do something with it. So we have a 30-acre real estate project, and we're just completing phase 1. We're a part owner of our television network. That whole ecosystem is changing dramatically.
Yeah.
But we want to have a role in how the content is distributed. We were just talking over the weekend, Buster and I, about how great the drone shots were on our telecasts of the Red Sox games, and last night as well. And that is part of what we do, is we put out content. And we want to be, part of that we do obviously a lot of it internally, social media around the Giants, but are there other areas that we can get involved in where we can use our skill sets? And we're looking at acquiring businesses and touching that as well. There's a business within the Giants called Giants Enterprises, and we put on non-baseball events here in the ballpark and elsewhere. And so all of that, I think, is part of using our skill sets around sponsors and around ticketing and around community connection here and maybe in some other markets down the line.
I mean, just the picture you're painting of what was here before this ballpark, then what was here before you started on the Mission Rock. I mean, what a transformation of this part of town, that now down to the where the Warriors play. It's incredible what you can do to the city.
And it's a new neighborhood for the city.
Yeah,
and we're a city in many ways. When you think about San Francisco, having grown up here, we're a city of neighborhoods. And so we want people to have pride in Mission Bay and Dogpatch and Potrero Hill and all the neighborhoods that touch Mission Bay and Mission Rock.
How do you guys think about all this institutional capital coming into sports? I mean, how do you think about navigating that?
It's a really good thing. I mean, I think there are some boundaries that have been created in some of the leagues, not all the leagues, where, around control and board seats and all of that. And we have some private equity firms and institutional capital that own multiple teams in the same league, so you have to have those boundaries. But I think what it does is it creates, obviously, liquidity opportunities for investors. What that really means is we can get more investors in because there's just a more fluid system. In the old days, somebody owned 1% of the Giants, 3% of the Giants, 5%, and it was just like you just hold it, but we have 35 Giants investors.
Yeah.
And if curated the right way, we can have 35 evangelists for the Giants in the community.
Right.
And they own various businesses, or they're working in various communities, and they can be out there, talking about the Giants. And so I think what it does is it broadens things. I look at some of the other teams that have changed owners and have come to kind of a model like this. It reminded me of our group in '93, because it was kind of like a group of civic leaders or people that have connections to improve the community and do it as a civic gesture. So we want more of that, and I think with equity private equity, institutional capital, that just promotes a more liquid system.
Favorite piece of writing or movie about baseball?
I'd probably have to go movie, The Sandlot. Yeah, I think it's just the perfect picture of what childhood baseball should look like, with a bunch of friends out playing and getting into a little bit of trouble here and there. And I just always felt like that movie had a great way of showing what the game was about. It ultimately is a kid's game, and I think that's why fans are drawn towards major league players that play with, reckless abandonment and passion when they're out there, even as adults.
Yeah.
I'd say Field of Dreams. I mean, to me, it reminds me of going to games with my dad. And I would go to Candlestick and watch Willie Mays, but that field, when I walked in the ballpark, it was beautiful. Yeah. It was the green grass. It was dreamlike for me as a teenager, as a young kid growing up. And I love reading. There's so many great. I mean, the one thing about baseball also is there's a literature, there's a cinema around baseball that I'm not sure exists in the other sports.
Right.
I love reading some of Roger Angel's pieces in the New Yorker and David Halberstam's book on the New York.
The Boys of Summer, yeah.
Boys of Summer.
Yeah.
Spectacular. Yeah. About just the majesty of the game in those days, and it's different. There's, as Buster was saying, there's different majesty now. I'm not sure there's ever been players like Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. ever play the sport in the history of the sport.
Cool. That's a great way to leave it. Thank you guys. Let's go Giants. Thanks for everything. Really happy to be here with you guys, and we appreciate it. So
Thank you,
thanks.
David.
Thanks,
All right,
David.
great. Thanks.